Hello everyone, I am Kriti. Welcome back to Inside the Courts episode 5, where we break down the most important developments from the Supreme Court of India in a simplified, structured, and result focused manner. In today's episode, our focus spans the constitutional protections for regional languages, the evolving boundaries of matrimonial jurisprudence, strict statutory rules governing property succession, and the critical procedural timelines in civil litigations. We conclude with an update on the landmark Sabrimala review hearings and a new digital tool modifying how citizens interact with the judiciary. So let's get straight into it. The first major development comes from the case of Padam Mehta versus State of Rajasthan, where the Supreme Court delivered a significant judgment on linguistic rights and education. The bench of Justices Vikram Nath and Sandeep Mehta held that the right to receive education in one's mother tongue derives constitutional protection from Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, the freedom of speech and expression. But the court went a step further. It said that the right of expression is meaningful only when a person can actually understand, internalize, and process information. In other words, education is not merely about communication, it is about comprehension. The court criticized the lack of institutional recognition for the Rajasthani language and directed the state government to formulate a comprehensive policy for mother tongue based education in lines with the National Education Policy 2020. Importantly, Rajasthan was directed to progressively introduce Rajasthani both as a medium of instruction and as a subject in schools. Moving on from linguistic rights to gender parity, the Supreme Court fundamentally redefined the intersection of professional autonomy and matrimonial obligations in the case of An Saurabh Dutt versus Colonel Saurabh Iqbal. The case arose after lower courts granted a divorce to the respondent husband on the grounds of cruelty and desertion. Their primary justification was that the appellant, a qualified dentist, chose to run a clinic in Ahmedabad to sustain her career and care for her medically fragile child rather than relocating to her husband's remote military postings. The court, led by Justice Sandeep Mehta, overturned these findings, characterizing the lower court's approach as pedantic and regressive. The bench firmly established that a woman's professional identity is independent and cannot be subjected to spousal veto or treated as a mere appendage to the household. Highlighting a clear double standard, the court noted that the husband would never be expected to sacrifice his career under identical circumstances. While the decree of divorce was sustained due to the irretrievable breakdown of marriage, the court strictly expunged all findings of cruelty and desertion against the wife, reinforcing her constitutional rights of dignity and professional fulfillment. Next comes a major ruling on property and succession in the case of Manjula versus D.A. Srinivas. Here, the plaintiff sought ownership of an estate through a will despite being the primary accused in the murder of the testator K. Raghunath. The court restored the trial court's decision to reject the suit at the threshold under Order 7 Rule 11 Subclause D of the CPC. Justices J.B. Pardiwala and R. Mahadevan clarified that the Slayer rule under Section 25 of the HSA applies both to interstate and testamentary succession. The statutory disqualification is rooted in the equitable maxim of ex turpi causa non oritur actio, the principle that no person should profit from their own wrongdoings. Crucially, the court established that a formal criminal conviction is not a prerequisite for the civil bar to operate. Instead, a civil court can evaluate the party's involvement in the crime using the standard of preponderance of probabilities. Moving on, the strict enforcement of judicial timelines was further emphasized in the case of Haban Shah versus Sheruddin, in a property dispute spanning over 2 decades. In this case, the plaintiff failed to deposit the balance sale consideration within a court-mandated 3-month window following a decree for specific performance. Justices Pankaj Mittal and S.V.N. Bhati clarified that a decree for specific performance is preliminary and conditional. Failing to comply with the stipulated payment window without securing a formal extension before that timeline lapses leads to the automatic dismissal of the suit. The bench ruled that a late deposit accepted by an executing court does not amount to a deemed extension. By missing the deadline, the buyer failed to demonstrate the continuous readiness and willingness required by the specific relief act. The contract was therefore treated as rescinded under Section 28 of the Act, though the court ordered the seller to refund the initial earnest money with interest to balance equities. Another important procedural ruling came in the case of Sheikh Abidin versus Iqbal, wherein the court interpreted Order 12 Rule 6 of the CPC, which permits courts to pass judgments based on admissions. The defendant in this case had previously admitted in criminal proceedings that he was merely a caretaker and that the plaintiffs were the true owners of the property. Later, during the civil suit, he attempted to deny those facts. The Supreme Court held that admissions made otherwise, including in FIRs, complaints or criminal proceedings, can legitimately form the basis of civil decree under Order 12. The court emphasized that procedural law should not force unnecessary trials when material facts are already clearly admitted by the parties themselves. In another important ruling, the Supreme Court in the case of Gunjan versus State Entity of Delhi quashed criminal proceedings under the SC/ST Act arising out of a family dispute. The court held that the offences under Section 3, subsection 1 of the Act, the alleged caste-based insult must occur in a place within the public view, which is an essential statutory requirement. Since the alleged incident took place inside a residential house and not in the presence of an independent public witness, the court found that the basic ingredients of the offence was not satisfied. This judgment reiterates that prosecutions under the SC/ST Act must strictly satisfy the statutory requirements laid down under the law. Now, turning on to broader constitutional debates, a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court recently concluded extensive hearings to the Sabrimala Review reference. The arguments on the dates between 11 to 16 centered around the complex balance between individual religious freedom under Article 25 and denominational autonomy under Article 26 of the Constitution. Counsel representing respondents contended that denominational rights cannot override individual dignity, equality, and freedom of conscience. They criticized the essential religious practices doctrine, arguing that it inappropriately forces secular courts into theological inquiries. Conversely, counsel for the review petitioners defended denominational autonomy, arguing that Article 25 and 26 protect collective religious identity alongside individual rights. They maintained that constitutional morality should not be utilized as an independent ground to invalidate traditional practices. The bench, after 16 days of extensive arguments, have finally reserved its judgment on these systematic questions. Finally, we conclude this episode with an update on judicial administration. In an effort to enhance institutional transparency, the Supreme Court has launched an AI-powered assistant chatbot, namely SuSahai, on its official portal. This digital assistant enables litigants to directly access real-time cases, daily orders, and basic procedural insights. So, if you found this breakdown useful, do like, share, and subscribe for more simplified analysis of important constitutional and legal developments from across the Indian courts. See you in the next episode.